Sienna Locke walked quickly through the long metal halls of the Imperium, her boots making soft echoes on the floor. The starship was huge, a floating city in space, home to thousands of beings from dozens of alien worlds. But right now, Sienna felt completely alone. She was an engineer, used to fixing things. Broken panels, clogged pipes, flickering lights. But this morning, her repair work had taken her to a new part of the ship. The map on her wrist device blinked and spun, showing nothing but empty corridors. She realized, with a small twist of fear, that she was lost. Sienna turned a corner and froze. Before her was a massive door, taller than any human, and made from a strange, dark metal that seemed to drink up the light. Bright yellow warning signs flashed above it, written in every language of the Alliance. Do note ENTR, danger, the Queen's Chamber. Everyone on the Imperium knew about this door. Every species told stories about it. Some said the Tylarian Queen kept terrible weapons inside. Others whispered she had monsters guarding her secrets. But all the stories agreed on one thing. Stay away. Never go near the Queen's Chamber. Sienna should have turned back. She remembered the words of her alien friend, Jorix, who once told her, "Humans are brave, but sometimes you are too curious for your own good." Now she understood what he meant. The smart thing was to leave, but her curiosity was stronger than her fear. She stepped closer, staring at the strange marks burned into the door. Suddenly, her tool belt buzzed. Her repair scanner blinked with a new error. Life support meant ALFUanxion. Critical LEVELs DTECTD nearby. Sienna's eyes widened. Life support. If something was wrong near the Queen's Chamber, it could be serious. Maybe even dangerous for the whole ship. Her fingers trembled as she reached out and pressed her hand against the security panel. It glowed, scanning her. She expected it to reject her. But to her shock, the door clicked open, just a few inches, enough for a human to squeeze through. Her heart raced. This was a bad idea, a terrible idea. But Sienna took a deep breath, steadied herself, and slid inside. The air was thick and warm, and there was a low humming sound, like a song sung by 100 deep voices. The chamber was dim, filled with glowing blue plants. At the far end, she could see a tall, shadowy figure, motionless and silent. Sienna realized she was inside the legendary Queen's Chamber, the place everyone else avoided. For a moment, she just stood there, feeling more alone than ever before. But as her eyes adjusted to the strange light, she saw that the Queen was watching her, many eyes shining like stars in the dark. And so, Sienna Locke, the human who never knew when to turn back, became the first outsider to enter the Queen's Chamber. Sienna's heart thudded in her chest. The Queen's Chamber was nothing like the rest of the Imperium. Here, everything felt ancient and alive. Vines with glowing flowers curled along the walls. The air smelled like rain and strange spices. Sienna's hand shook as she held her repair scanner tight, trying to remember to breathe. The Tylarian Queen stood tall and still, her long arms folded. She looked nothing like the stories Sienna had heard. There were no fangs or claws, no armor of spikes. Instead, the Queen's skin shimmered in shades of silver and blue, like moonlight on water. She had 6 eyes, all fixed on Sienna. Sienna took a careful step forward. She wanted to speak, to explain why she was there, but the words stuck in her throat. She remembered the warning signs. She remembered Jorix's worried voice. No one goes in there and comes out the same. But Sienna's scanner buzzed again. The life support error was worse now. A red light blinked fast. Danger for anyone, even the Queen herself. Sienna looked at the Queen, then at the scanner. She held it up, trying to show the Queen the flashing warning. To Sienna's surprise, the Queen didn't roar or attack. Instead, she tilted her head, curious. A soft light glowed from the Queen's chest. Sienna realized she was trying to communicate, but not with words. The Queen waved her long hand, and the glowing vines moved aside, revealing a broken control panel at the wall. Sienna understood. The queen needed help. Her fear began to melt away. She walked to the panel, her boots sinking into soft moss. As she opened the panel, she saw the problem. Wires burned, circuits fried. She had fixed worse, but never in a place like this. She glanced back at the queen, who watched her every move, silent but hopeful. Sienna got to work. She used her toolkit to strip wires and replace parts. As she worked, the queen made soft humming sounds. Sienna guessed they were songs or prayers. The glow from the plants grew brighter, and Sienna felt a strange calmness, like the chamber itself wanted her to succeed. It took time, but finally, Sienna connected the last wire. The control panel blinked green. The life support system hummed back to life. The air felt cooler, fresher. Sienna turned to the queen. For a moment, neither moved. Then, slowly, the queen knelt down. She placed one long hand on her chest, then reached out, offering Sienna a small, glowing fruit from a nearby plant. Sienna accepted it, hands shaking with relief and pride. She had broken the rules, yes, but maybe sometimes rules were meant to be broken, especially if it meant saving a life. Outside, no one knew a human had entered the queen's chamber. Inside, Sienna and the queen shared a silent understanding. Everything had just changed. Sienna sat quietly on the mossy floor, holding the glowing fruit the queen had given her. For a moment, she forgot she was in the most forbidden place on the entire starship. The queen, still kneeling, watched her closely. Sienna wondered what the queen was thinking. The chamber felt less scary now. The humming plants glowed softly, and the cool air smelled sweet. Sienna took a careful bite of the fruit. It tasted strange, sour and sweet at the same time, but it filled her with warmth and energy. She smiled and nodded at the queen, hoping to show her gratitude. The queen's many eyes blinked, and she tilted her head, as if she was pleased. Then, without warning, the queen stood up and walked deeper into the chamber. Sienna hesitated but followed her, curiosity pulling her forward. As they moved, Sienna noticed more details. Strange, blue-green eggs were gathered in a small nest at the chamber's heart. The queen moved carefully, protecting the eggs with her long arms. Sienna realized these must be the queen's children, the next generation of her kind. The queen gently brushed one egg, and it glowed even brighter. Sienna knelt beside the nest, amazed. She had seen animal eggs before, back on Earth, but nothing like this. The eggs seemed to pulse with soft light, like tiny stars. Suddenly, Sienna understood why the chamber was so secret. The queen was not just a ruler, she was a mother, and these eggs were her precious hope for the future. No wonder she wanted to keep everyone out. Sienna looked at the queen and smiled, hoping to show respect. She tried to speak softly. "They're beautiful." Of course, the queen did not understand human words, but she seemed to recognize Sienna's gentle tone. The queen moved closer, placing one hand lightly on Sienna's shoulder. Sienna felt the queen's touch, cool, but somehow kind. The queen made a low, musical sound. Sienna listened carefully. She could not understand the meaning, but the tone was gentle. The queen then turned to the glowing plants and pressed her palm against one. A soft light flowed from the queen into the plant. Sienna watched, fascinated, as the plant grew brighter, lighting up the whole chamber. The queen turned back to Sienna and offered her a small flower from the plant. Sienna accepted it, feeling honored. She realized the queen was not a monster or a villain. She was a living being, capable of kindness, care, and trust. For a while, Sienna and the queen sat together in the peaceful glow, both watching over the eggs. Sienna's fear had faded completely. She felt something new instead, a sense of friendship, or at least a strong respect, growing between them. No one else on the ship would believe what was happening, but in the quiet of the queen's chamber, two very different beings began to understand each other. Sienna's mind raced with questions, but she stayed quiet, not wanting to disturb the peaceful moment. The queen sat beside her, Watching over the glowing eggs, Sienna felt a strange connection forming, even though they could not speak the same language. For a few minutes, they just sat together in silence. Sienna studied the queen, noticing little details, her gentle hands, the way her eyes blinked in patterns, and the way her body seemed to hum with soft light. She realized the queen was not only powerful, but also wise and gentle. Suddenly, Sienna's repair scanner buzzed again. She checked the screen. The life support system in the chamber was still weak, running only because of her quick fix. It needed a real repair soon, or the eggs would be in danger again. Sienna tried to show the scanner to the queen. She pointed to the red blinking light, and then to the eggs. The queen watched, tilting her head in confusion at first. Then, as Sienna repeated the motion, the queen's eyes widened with understanding. To show she wanted to help, Sienna reached into her pocket and pulled out a ration bar. It was small, meant to give energy during long shifts. She unwrapped it, broke it in half, and offered a piece to the queen. The queen sniffed the bar, curious. Slowly, she took it with her long fingers and tasted it. She blinked in surprise. The taste was new, but not unpleasant. Sienna smiled, happy that her gesture was accepted. The queen stood up and moved to a wall filled with colorful crystals. She touched them in a pattern, and a panel slid open, revealing a hidden machine. Something broken, with wires hanging out. Sienna's eyes lit up. This was the heart of the life support system. With a nod from the queen, Sienna got to work. She pulled out her toolkit and started fixing the wires. The queen watched closely, sometimes pointing to a certain part or making a soft humming sound when Sienna did something right. They worked together without words, trusting each other's intentions. As they worked, the chamber began to feel even warmer, the air fresher. The eggs pulsed with a healthy light. Sienna felt proud. She was not just fixing a machine. She was helping a family, and maybe even saving a whole species. When the repair was finished, the queen turned to Sienna and touched her shoulder gently. Sienna felt a wave of gratitude, almost like a silent thank you passed from the queen to her mind. Sienna smiled back, her eyes bright. For the first time since she entered the chamber, Sienna felt at home. She realized that understanding did not always need words. Sometimes, actions and kindness spoke louder than any language. In that quiet, glowing chamber, a silent friendship began, one that would change everything. Sienna wiped sweat from her forehead as she packed away her tools. The life support system now worked smoothly, its soft hum blending with the peaceful sounds of the chamber. The queen watched her closely, her 6 eyes shining with a gentle light. Sienna glanced around, taking in the wonders of the queen's private world. She noticed how carefully the queen arranged every plant and crystal, making sure each egg had the perfect warmth and light. Sienna felt honored to witness this secret place, a side of the queen no one else had ever seen. As Sienna sat down near the nest of eggs, she wondered how lonely the queen must feel. She was the ruler of her people, but trapped in this quiet chamber, afraid to trust anyone else. Sienna's heart ached for her. The queen sat beside her, holding out a long, thin object. It was a small crystal, glowing softly. Sienna took it, turning it over in her hands. Suddenly, images flashed in her mind, memories not her own. She saw a younger queen, proud and strong, leading her people through the stars. She felt the pain of betrayal when outsiders attacked, stealing eggs and leaving the queen wounded and alone. Sienna gasped as the vision faded. She understood now why the queen kept everyone away. It was not just fear, it was heartbreak. The queen was trying to protect her children from the pain she had suffered. Sienna placed her hand over her heart, then touched the queen's arm, hoping to show she understood. The queen nodded slowly, her eyes softening. For the first time, she seemed less like a legend and more like a real person. Just then, Sienna's scanner beeped again. She frowned, checking the readings. Something was still wrong. Deep inside the chamber's walls, one of the life support pipes was leaking. If it burst, it could flood the chamber with cold air and hurt the eggs. Sienna quickly explained with gestures and her scanner. The queen responded, pressing her palm to a section of the wall. With a hiss, the wall slid open, revealing a narrow passage lined with glowing moss. Sienna crawled inside, her hands brushing against the soft moss as she worked to fix the leak. It was dark and cramped, but she didn't stop. She thought about the queen's pain and her hope for the future. She wanted to help, really help, not just fix a machine. After a while, Sienna emerged, covered in dust but smiling. She gave the queen a thumbs up. The queen let out a soft, musical sound, a sound Sienna knew was happiness. Sienna realized she had discovered not only the secrets of the chamber, but also the secret of trust. It was built slowly, one small act of kindness at a time. In that moment, Sienna and the queen were no longer strangers. They were allies, sharing the hope of new life and new beginnings. Sienna was just finishing her last check of the chamber when the sharp sound of footsteps echoed down the hallway outside. Her heart jumped. The queen's chamber was supposed to be sealed tight. Who could be coming now? Before she could react, the heavy metal door slid open with a loud hiss. Several Xylarian guards rushed in, their weapons glowing bright and ready. Their eyes narrowed as they saw Sienna sitting calmly beside the queen. "Get up. You are trespassing." One of the guards barked in the harsh, clicking language of the Xylarians. Sienna stood slowly, her hands raised to show she meant no harm. "I'm helping," she said clearly in basic common, the universal language of the Alliance. The chamber's life support was broken. "I fixed it." The guards exchanged glances. One stepped forward and aimed his weapon. Sienna felt a cold sweat run down her spine. She did not want to fight. She just wanted to protect the queen and her eggs. Suddenly, the queen rose from her seat. Her many eyes blazed with fierce light. She stretched out her long arms toward the guards, and with a deep, commanding voice, she roared. The guards froze. The queen's roar was not just a sound. It was a signal of power, authority, and warning. The air seemed to crackle around her as the guards lowered their weapons, slowly, stepping back. Sienna watched, amazed. The queen was defending her, defending a human. One guard spoke carefully. "Why did you let her in, Majesty? She could be a spy." The queen's eyes narrowed. She looked at Sienna once more, then said in a low tone, "She saved us." The guards hesitated but obeyed. They retreated, closing the heavy door behind them. Silence returned to the chamber. Sienna looked at the queen, her eyes wide with disbelief. "You stood up for me." The queen's expression softened. She knelt down again by the eggs, touching one gently. "You are not like the others. You understand." Sienna smiled. For the first time, she felt she belonged somewhere in this vast universe. Not just as a human, but as someone who could build bridges between different worlds. The queen motioned toward the glowing plants again. Sienna understood it was time to continue their work. But now, the chamber felt safer, and the bond between them stronger. Outside, the guards spread the news. A human had entered the queen's chamber and survived. Some were angry, others curious. But no one could deny that something had changed. For Sienna, the day began as a mistake, but it ended as the start of an unlikely friendship, one that would change the fate of many. News of the humans' bold visit to the queen's chamber spread quickly through the Imperium. Some aliens whispered in shock, others in anger. Many wondered, why would the queen allow a human inside? Could she trust someone so different? Sienna walked through the ship's corridors, feeling eyes on her. Some crew members avoided her, while others gave her curious glances. But Sienna held her head high. She knew what she had done was important. In the chamber, the queen watched Sienna closely. Their silent bond had grown strong. The queen no longer seemed as distant or fearful. She showed Sienna new ways to communicate, through light patterns and soft hums. Sienna learned to understand the queen's feelings without words. One day, the queen led Sienna to a room filled with holographic maps and data crystals. The queen used gestures to explain her people's past, a history of war, betrayal, and survival. Sienna listened carefully, feeling the weight of the stories. The queen's people had been powerful once, ruling many star systems, but enemies had attacked, stealing their eggs and scattering their kind. The queen had hidden in the chamber to protect the last eggs and to keep hope alive. Sienna felt a deep respect for the queen's strength. She wanted to help more than ever. Back on the ship, Sienna began talking to the crew. She explained the queen's story and the dangers the eggs faced. Slowly, some aliens started to understand. They volunteered to help repair the chamber and guard it better. A few skeptics still doubted, but Sienna didn't mind. She believed actions spoke louder than words. Together, humans and aliens worked side by side. Engineers repaired the life support systems. Botanists studied the glowing plants. Guards took shifts protecting the chamber's door. It was the first real team effort between species on the Imperium. The queen watched this new alliance with quiet approval. She even allowed a few guards to approach her chamber to learn her ways. The old fear was fading. One evening, Sienna and the queen sat beneath the glowing plants. Sienna shared stories of Earth, of human families, friendships, and hope. The queen's eyes shimmered with light, as if she understood every word. For Sienna, this was more than a job. It was a chance to build peace. The Imperium was changing, thanks to one human's courage and a queen's trust. The future looked brighter for all. The Imperium buzzed with new energy. After Sienna's brave actions, humans and aliens worked together like never before. The queen's chamber was no longer a place of fear, but of hope. Sienna stood before the glowing eggs, watching them pulse gently with life. The chamber's life support hummed steadily, thanks to her careful repairs and the team's hard work, but there was still more to do. The queen approached, her many eyes filled with quiet trust. She gestured toward a large ancient machine in the corner. It was covered in dust and tangled wires, and it didn't seem to work anymore. Sienna walked over and examined it closely. The machine was old, much older than anything she had seen before. Its controls were strange, and the symbols on it were unfamiliar. But Sienna's engineering mind kicked in. She studied the device for hours, testing wires, checking circuits, and figuring out how it connected to the chamber systems. The queen stayed near, watching every move with silent patience. Slowly, Sienna began to understand the machine's purpose. It controlled the environment in the chamber, temperature, humidity, and even the special light the eggs needed to grow strong. Without it, the eggs would not survive. Sienna got to work, repairing parts and rewiring broken connections. Sometimes she made mistakes. Sparks flew, and the machine groaned. But she did not give up. The queen hummed softly, as if encouraging her. Sienna smiled, feeling the quiet support. Finally, the machine started to hum smoothly. The chamber filled with a soft, warm light. The plants glowed brighter, and the eggs pulsed with stronger life. Sienna turned to the queen, proud and tired. The queen reached out and gently touched Sienna's arm, a sign of deep thanks. News of the machine's repair spread quickly. The Imperium's leaders were impressed. They saw that humans could bring new ideas and skills to the Alliance. Sienna became a symbol of hope and cooperation. She was invited to meetings where different species shared ideas and learned from each other. But for Sienna, the greatest reward was the trust of the queen and the chance to protect the future. As the days passed, the eggs began to hatch, one by one. Tiny creatures with shimmering skin and bright eyes emerged, fragile but full of life. The queen watched over them with pride and joy. Sienna stood beside the queen, feeling a deep sense of accomplishment. Together, they had saved a future many thought lost. The chamber was no longer a place to fear. It was a symbol of what could happen when different worlds come together. And for Sienna, it was just the beginning of a new adventure, one where humans showed the galaxy what it truly meant to care. The chamber was alive with soft, warm light as the last of the eggs hatched. Tiny Xylarians, shimmering in shades of blue and silver, blinked their many eyes at the new world. The queen watched them with pride, her body glowing softly in the chamber's light. Sienna stood nearby, her heart full. She had helped bring new life into the universe. The quiet moments in the chamber felt like a gift, a time of peace after so much fear and danger. Word of Sienna's bravery spread throughout the Imperium. The alien crews, once wary of humans, began to see them in a new light. The humans' courage, kindness, and quick thinking were hard to ignore. One day, during a ship-wide assembly, the queen appeared before the gathered crowd. The room fell silent. The queen's presence was powerful, even without words. She turned to Sienna and nodded. The gesture was clear: gratitude and respect. The captain of the Imperium stepped forward. "Sienna Locke has shown us what it means to be brave and caring," he said. "Her actions remind us that strength is not just in weapons or power, but in trust and friendship." The crowd erupted in applause. Aliens from many worlds clapped and cheered for the human who had changed the fate of the queen and her people. Sienna felt shy but proud. She looked at the queen, who gave her a small smile. From that day on, humans were no longer seen as outsiders or weak. They were valued allies, teachers, and friends. The barriers between species began to fall. The queen's chamber was opened carefully to trusted members of the crew. Scientists studied the glowing plants, and diplomats learned from the queen's wisdom. Sienna continued to work with the queen, learning new things every day. She knew their friendship had changed not only the chamber, but the whole alliance. As she walked through the corridors of the Imperium, Sienna felt a new sense of belonging. She was part of something bigger, a future where all beings could live in peace. The galaxy was vast and full of danger, but also full of hope. And with humans like Sienna, that hope burned brighter than ever. The Imperium was quieter now. The Queen's chamber, once feared and avoided, had become a place of hope and new beginnings. The tiny Xylarian hatchlings played under the soft glow of the bioluminescent plants, their laughter-like sounds filling the air. Sienna stood beside the queen, watching the young ones grow. She smiled, thinking about how far they had come. What had started as a dangerous mistake, a human entering the forbidden chamber, had changed everything. The queen looked at Sienna with many bright eyes. She spoke in soft hums and colors that only Sienna understood now. It was a language of trust and friendship, words unspoken but deeply felt. The alliance leaders gathered soon after to honor Sienna. They praised her bravery and kindness, but more than that, her ability to see beyond fear and hatred. The queen's voice echoed across the assembly, translated by the ship's technology. "Today, we honor the human who opened her heart in this chamber. She reminds us that courage and compassion can unite worlds." Cheers filled the room. Aliens from many species stood and applauded. Humans and aliens alike celebrated the new bond forged through trust. Sienna felt a deep pride, but knew the journey was not over. She looked out at the stars through the chamber's tall windows. So many mysteries waited to be explored, so many challenges to face. But she was ready, not just as a human, but as a bridge between worlds. Her story spread throughout the galaxy. The human who dared to enter the Queen's chamber, who repaired what was broken, and who brought hope to many. It was a story of bravery and friendship, of breaking old rules and building new futures. Sienna knew that humanity had a place among the stars, not just as fighters or explorers, but as healers and friends. And so, in the great dance of the cosmos, humanity's light shone brighter than ever. Because sometimes, the greatest power comes from the simplest things: a helping hand, a kind heart, and the courage to step into the unknown. In the end, the universe had learned one thing clearly: humanity, F***,